So you've managed to talk the hiring manager into taking you for a cup of coffee. What's the point? What we're going to do? Here's what we're going to do. 1, you want to find out as much as you can. In the same way that if you were meeting a decision maker for a cup of coffee the week before a final presentation, you're just looking for inside track. You're looking for tiny morsels of information that you can use with which to differentiate yourself. Point 2, do not worry about your competition. The amount of times I get phone calls, texts, emails from candidates where they say to me, tell me about the other guys in the frame. That is not how recruitment works. I can assure you, the only thing you can focus on in the interview process is you and your game. There are too many other variables in this instance that we don't know anything about. When you get there, explain to the client, the first thing you're going to do is explain to the client that you're going to bring a business plan to the meeting. And you explain to them that what you're looking to do is you're going to say, listen, when I come to the presentation next week, I'm going to do my presentation, but what I'm also going to do, and this is the killer point, and this is how we're going to work all the way through this process. What I'm going to do next week is I'm going to bring a business plan to the meeting. And I want to be able to turn up on the day and explain to you how I'm going to make a success of the role. Whether that's the title of the presentation or not, you've still got to do your presentation, but you're going to explain to the hiring manager in this cup of coffee or on this telephone call that that's what you're going to do. I'm going to bring a business plan to the meeting. It's not going to be a 30, 60, 90 plan. It's a business plan. Why is it a business plan? Well, let's cast our mind back to the whole series of videos that we watched when we were preparing for our first interviews. Can you remember we were talking about going on Dragon's Den and pitching for people to part with money to lend to you until such time that you were making enough money that you were paying for yourself? Remember that? If you watch those first videos, you'll remember it. What we're doing here is we're going along and we're pitching to the Dragons. We're going to ask them to lend us 50, 60, 70, £100,000 next year for a franchise in their company. So best we have an extremely good business plan to form the basis upon which they lend you that money, because no job is a job. There's no such thing. In sales, there are only loans. Loans until such time that you begin to repay the loan with the revenues that you start to generate. So what you want to be able to do is demonstrate a few things in the business plan. Firstly, it shows that you've gone to more trouble than your competitors. It's an immediate differentiator. If on presentation day, 4 candidates show up, 3 of them turn up in their best suits, having been for a sunbed the day before, having made sure that they've had a good night's kip at best, and all turn up and do a really good PowerPoint presentation with a 30, 60, 90 maybe thrown in, and then one of them turns up, does his presentation, but the night before has emailed a beautiful, extremely considered business plan to all the different buying influencers in the process. I wonder which one of them will get the job. I can guarantee you it'll be that one. So you get to demonstrate that you've gone to a bit more trouble than your competition. You get to demonstrate that you have business acumen, intellect, and thought as to how you will achieve. You get to demonstrate that you've got a structured, considered, thoughtful approach. You get to demonstrate that you understand the key unspoken tenets of selling, like activity, which we'll talk about later in this particular video, about conversion ratios, about being a profit center in your own right, and an awareness on your part of knowing that you've got to make your employees some money here. On top of that, it's an opportunity for you to show them that you can put together really high quality bid and proposal materials yourself, that you know what you're doing and you can bring it all into one great document and get that in front of a hiring manager. So what are you going to ask the hiring manager when you get there? I've got a list of key questions here so that when you're meeting them and you've explained to them, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to prepare a business plan for the meeting and this is what I want to bring along. You've got some key questions to ask. One is, what does a good first 3 months and 6 months look like precisely? Now, most people turn up, I would say 90% of the presentations we get asked for candidates to do at second interview are classic 30, 60, 90-day plan presentations. Most people turn up I would say 9 out of 10 times the candidates don't know precisely what a good 90 days or a good 6 months looks like. What actually could we use to precisely define success or failure over a 6-month period? Because once you know that, you can work backwards to work forwards with it as you prepare your presentation. Most people just guess. They just make assumptions. And as a result, the hiring manager sort of sits there and he half tries to calculate, and the CEO tries to half try to calculate, oh, is this guy going to be right? Is he not? I don't know. And often it's the prettiest candidate or the one with the prettiest presentation that ends up getting it, as opposed to the one that went, hold on a minute, I totally know exactly what 6 good months looks like, and this is how I'll deliver on it. What's in the current pipeline? Am I going to inherit anything? What's your current conversion ratio on deals? How many of the deals do you go after do you convert? Be interesting that, because you'll be amazed how many clients and hiring managers don't know. But in and of itself, of just asking that question, you're saying to the hiring manager, conversion ratios matter to me. Do they matter to you? It might be that you qualify out. The guy might sit there and look at you clueless and you're thinking, these people are numpties. They don't get the basic tenets of selling. What's the current activity levels or the current expected activity levels by my peers? What KPIs are you using within the business to measure success or failure? What's the current reporting and forecasting structure? So you can say, right, if that's where I've got to be in 6 months, you can work back and go, right, well, what have I got to do to get there? What are the typical margins per deal? What are the typical monthly lead volumes and marketing support? What precisely will I get? What can I expect precisely from you as an employer? What's the precise average length of a sales cycle? If the client turns around to you, a hiring manager says, I want you to come and work for me, and a good 6 months looks like you'll have a deal on the table by the end of the 6 months. Okay, great. How many deals did you do last year? What was the average sales cycle of those deals? It might be that their expectations are wrong. And again, by doing this work, it will really help you qualify the opportunity. What's the decision-making process on the day of the interview? Will everybody who needs to be there to make a decision be there on the day? What are the current barriers to the business being successful and to us being successful in the role? What are the current reasons why you win deals? And this is your opportunity to A, ask some really good qualifying questions, and B, actually get the inside track. So before you get in the car and you've asked all those questions, there's one more question that you need to ask the hiring manager that you've just met for a cup of coffee. And that is this. If you were a client of mine and this was a deal I was going after, I'd email everybody with the agenda the night before the meeting, and I'd make sure that they all had a copy of the business plan and the proposal the night before the meeting. Is it okay if I do that? And you make sure that you get the hiring manager's agreement to send A, an agenda, and B, the proposal. Again, it shows your salesmanship. It gives you an opportunity to differentiate yourself amongst the other candidates in the process. And B, it shows that sometimes you get the concept of getting an agenda, but what occasionally happens, and this is where it gets really beautiful, is when I've had it before where candidates send a suggested agenda to the CEO and the CEO comes back and says, well, thank you for actually asking. There are a couple of things I would like to add to the agenda. And on the morning of that interview, when they all walk into the meeting room to meet you, the leaders of the business are all sat there going, I'm really looking forward to seeing candidate X today. I love how he's emailed me. Oh, really? He's emailed you? He emailed me too, did he? Oh, and he sent me his business plan. I didn't ask for a business plan, but I've got to say it's very comprehensive. Oh yeah, well, he met me for a coffee last week. And before you've even walked through the room, you got this job in comparison to the other candidates. It's yours to lose at that point. Final bit. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to go home and you're going to send an email out to everybody with your agenda and your suggested agenda. And there's an email template here. Hi, X, my name is Y. After an interview with Z on date X, I've been invited back to meet you and your colleagues on the date, and I'm really looking forward to it. Before any meeting of this nature, be it for a new role or with a prospective client, I would always expect to extend the courtesy of checking whether there is anything you personally would like to add to the agenda or would like me to prepare outside of what's already been stipulated. Please feel free to let me know if there is. If not, really looking forward to meeting you on the day. And it's just that little courtesy. I had a client recently turn around to me, and he was the CEO of a company, and he said, nobody ever asks me if there's anything I'd really like to add. I just get wheeled out to have a look at the candidate that they're spending my money on. And so sometimes that courtesy is a very pleasant, very smart thing to do. Right, now let's prepare for the interview.